A reclusive woman living a very isolated and secluded life along with her mom, brother, and sister out in England turned out to have passed away in her home quite a while ago, as her family was thoroughly convinced she was still alive. Before we move on, I'd like to give a shout out to PDS Debt for sponsoring this video. Let's kick off 2023 with a New Year's resolution to get your finances on track and to get out of debt. I'm sure a lot of you out there are wishing that there was a better way to pay off your debts. Maybe you're struggling with credit card debt, personal loans, debt collection agencies, or even medical bills. It's no secret that inflation just keeps going up, and gas prices don't seem to be getting a whole lot better either, so now would be the time to start thinking about how to pay off these debts. If you're making payments on your debt every month and the balances still aren't going down, then this is for you. PDS Debt is giving viewers of this channel a free debt savings analysis just for completing the 30-second online debt assessment at pdsdebt.com/diretrip. You'll get a full breakdown on how to save interest each month and the quickest way to take care of your debt. PDS Debt rolls all of your payments into one low 0% interest monthly payment. Everyone with over $10,000 in debt qualifies, and the cool thing is there's no minimum credit score required. Fair and even bad credit is even accepted. You could end up saving thousands in interest and fees, and not to mention pay off your debt in a fraction of the time. Like I said, PDS Debt is offering a free debt analysis to my listeners just for completing the quick and easy debt assessment at pdsdebt.com/diretrip. That's pdsdebt.com/diretrip. And now back to the content. Today's story is about a Japanese woman who was living out in North Yorkshire, England, named Rina Yasutake. She, along with her brother and sister and her mother, moved to England after her parents presumably got divorced and her mother married a British man. In her childhood, Rina was a very gifted student and seemed to have performed well throughout her academic career. Her family was pretty self-reliant, to put it lightly, and she was educated at a private school called Queen Mary's near Thirsk. Later on in life, her talents got her a scholarship into Cambridge University. Upon entering the university, she specialized in linguistics, studying classical literature. It seems that, at the time, she at least had contact with her classmates. I say that because, as an adult, that department of her life would change pretty drastically. After graduation, she wouldn't go on to get a job. In fact, it isn't even known if she did much of anything after that point, as it seems she somewhat vanished. She was a very talented artist, and it seems she sold some artwork for a small price from time to time, but little else is known. She lived in Cambridge with her family, who became more and more reclusive, more and more cut off from the world. Eventually, the family moved to Helmsley and slowly lost most, if not all, contact with the outside world. They were said to have been living there, but not part of the community. The Yasutake family lived with no modern communication devices whatsoever. They had no internet, no television, not even a radio. By 2018, Rina was 49, her brother Takahiro was 51, and her sister Yoshika was 56. Even when speaking with a Japanese interpreter, it seems that it was very hard for the family to communicate with outsiders. It was noted that, quote, the Japanese they spoke was fairly unique, noting that they spoke a very peculiar dialect. This raises a few questions that the media hasn't really answered. Did the mother's British husband speak this particular weird brand of Japanese? Was the Japanese they used a rare form of the language from a small town out in the country, maybe? Or did their seclusion gradually change their language into something more and more different over time? One article mentions that the Japanese they spoke is their own dialect, which leads me to believe that that's probably the case, but it's never outright stated anywhere. Rina succeeded all throughout her academic career, so she must have been at least proficient in English, but did her mother and older siblings just never learn the language? And then where was the husband at this point? Given the age of the mother, I'd say that it's fairly likely that he's just not with us anymore, but that is also never outright stated. I'm afraid we're just left in the dark on a lot of these questions. At some point in her adulthood, Rina's father in Japan passed away. After this, she fell into bad health. Her family noted that she had been behaving very strangely, but hadn't seen any medical treatment since 2013, when she was treated for what has only been called an aggressive episode. By April of 2018, she gradually stopped eating until she eventually moved into her bed and never left. Her family didn't have any idea why this was happening. Their father had indeed passed away, but they had been living in England for what was now the majority of their lives, and nobody else in the house took it nearly this hard. However, we may never know because they feared that, as they put it, something could happen if they took her to the hospital. So, they didn't. The family encouraged her to eat, but they decided that this was her path, and they didn't have any right to change her path and force her to change her ways. However, she kept getting weaker and weaker. By this point, Rina was 4'11" and weighed less than 90 pounds, or about 150 centimeters and roughly 41 kilograms. Here's where we get to some of the truly strange commentary from the family, implying that Rina was sustaining by consuming her own soul. Yoshika, Rina's older sister, said, "She did not say much to us, so we said to eat and drink more. She looked like she was nourished by eating her soul. I don't know how to explain. Even though she was not eating, she was nourished with spiritual food and was fulfilled." And then, in August of 2018, Rina stopped eating and drinking entirely, and according to her family, she stopped moving as well. This was when a diary found in their home that their family kept noted that she wouldn't respond to them any longer. From an outside perspective, it's safe to say that this was when Rina passed away in her bed at home. She was 49 years old. Then Rina would go on to remain in this state for, at the very least, over a month. In late September of 2018, Rina's two older siblings were going to the local pharmacy every day, buying multiple bottles of medical alcohol at a time. Needless to say, the staff found this pretty weird. Even more strangely, the staff noted that these two usually reeked of dead bodies. One of the workers noted that Takahiro had a pink folder full of letters, one of which had the name Rina on it. The pharmacist inquired about the bottles, asking Takahiro, "Are they for her?" And he nodded. Concerned, or at the very least very confused, the staff decided to contact the local authorities and explain what had been going on. An ambulance, along with local police, decided to go ahead and go check out the home. The emergency services, once they came out to the property on the 25th, were shocked to find Rina's body underneath a blanket on a mattress on the floor. One paramedic said that it was very obvious that Rina had been dead for some weeks. However, her sister Yoshika would not accept that she was dead. She wasn't only in denial, she even later asserted that she was still breathing, that she was still warm, and that she still had a pulse. The body was taken and a post-mortem examination was performed. This examination didn't turn up any signs of an injury, no signs of drugs, and not even any signs pointing to disease. The exact cause of death was uncertain, but there was also no reason to feel that it was suspicious. She was simply in far too deteriorated of a state, to the point of even mummification, to come up with a pinpoint cause of death. The coroner recorded the case as being an open conclusion. Initially, the older brother, sister, and their mother, who was now 80 years old, were taken in on charges of preventing a lawful and decent burial. However, this all came to a halt when it was decided that the family likely all suffered from a rare mental disorder. Rina's family told the confused consult psychiatrist that Rina hadn't moved in months, but was very much alive. It was decided that a trial wasn't really in public interest. Sean Morris, the recorder of York, said at the time, "These three defendants suffer from an extremely rare mental affliction which has created a unique situation for the criminal courts." Although a trial wasn't going to take place, an inquest was going to be held in relation to the mysterious death. Craig Hassel, the attorney who represented the family, asked the inspectors if the family was utterly convinced that Rina was still alive. Detective Inspector Nicola Holden, who led the investigation, said that yes, they were, and they were for many months after. The Home Office pathologist, Dr. Jennifer Bolton, said that it would be very hard, if not impossible, to prove how long the woman had been dead, given the state of the body, but it had been at least several weeks. In the end, the Recorder of York decided that the charges should at least remain on file. But at the inquest, not much more information about the Yasutake family or their lives really came to light. The court heard of Rina's previous visit to the general practitioner back in 2013, after which she received counseling and mental health treatment, but she was never seen again after the fact. No expert has been able to determine a cause of death, with the coroner leaving an open verdict. He stated, simply, "I am unable from the evidence available to determine exactly how she died. We will likely never know for sure." The family, who still lives in the house to this day, didn't attend the inquest. They did, though, say that they will probably listen to a recording of it at a later date, at some point. Once again, thank you for watching my video. I've gotten a lot of requests to recover this one lately, so I hope you enjoyed and found it informative. If you don't mind, go ahead and give me a like, it really helps out in the algorithm, and subscribe if you find content like this interesting. If you don't mind, go ahead and follow me on social media as well. If anything would ever happen to this account, that would probably be the only way you'd ever hear about it. If you want to support the channel even further, I do have a Patreon which I always keep down in the description below, and speaking of which, shout out to the top patrons. We have Mautaz Hack, Impalado, Stefan Jamie Kramer, Max Sword Guy, L, Rain Noir, Pao Yang, Alice Malice Tentacles, April Diamond, Starfade, Astral, Grack, Angie, Rick of Work in Progress USA, Sash Johnson, Marianne McCurdy, Buttery Frankus, Wafrans, Jules Latona, Arctic Cat, Alan Damiani, Adrian Lawley, Marsh, Rinsenstein, Kim Peak, Lux Alpaca, Charity, Scoochie Main, Jackie, and Mark Barnett. You are all nourishing souls. This has been your host, Kyle. Thank you, and good night.